Yo, what is going on, guys? Just wanted to come on here to give my trade recap for the night. Two break evens, which we would take. Couldn't get that price delivery that we were looking for, unfortunately. But again, it's just one of those days where, um, we just take the break even and we just move on, right? So I'm starting to backtest recent price action. Um, we used price action before and random price action to kind of establish our definitions like liquidity sweeps and breaker structures, as well as what kind of breaker structure what we're looking for, as well as displacement as well. How are we defining our um how are we defining our breaker structures and displacement as well as liquidity sweeps? So that's what we kind of used the previous sessions for, was kind of just forming around that one trade model, right? Trying to find that one trade model that works for us, and that works in terms of being profitable as well. So though we are dedicated to trying to find our strategy, we're also dedicated, sorry, to we're dedicated to also finding our strategy, as well as making sure that it works, right? We want to make sure that it works in these markets, because paired that with psychology as well. So if we know it works, we should be sticking to it every single day into the markets. If we don't have our setup, then no trade, and that is what's going to keep us consistent, right? No matter if we lose, if we win, if we go break even. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm starting to like how we're heading towards this. We're starting to define our entries a lot more, as well as finding our definitions of what we want to see and what we're looking at, and also, what I'm happy with, right? Because, when I used to take trades on my live account, as well as those funded accounts, I felt like it was really forced information that I'd learned online, and I'm trying to implement it. But I've just never liked the reactions. Like, let's say some people prefer a liquidity sweep, a valid sweep to be a close above, right? And if we make a reversal shape, right? But for me to even classify that as like it wouldn't doesn't make sense to me that we classify that as a liquidity sweep, because we close above or below that 5 minute high or low, right? To me, that's just a breaker structure, right? Um, and if it's one thing that I've told you guys from the beginning, that the market moves off liquidity and fair value gaps, right? As well as orders get filled at order blocks as well. That's why we have confluences like that. But I just feel like, um, those closes above those highs and lows don't are not really significant, because if it was a true liquidity sweep, right, why are sellers not selling, at those, when we take our buys, we should be, if banks have really shifted the market, they should have shifted it, after taking out those sellers, right, to show aggression, right? That's why we wait for no closure, because if we have no closure, it shows that price couldn't break above that high or low and it's respected, right? But that's also paired with a market structure shift, displacement, which we want to see as a fair value gap, and kind of things like that. And that's why we've implemented that into our strategy as well, just to kind of increase our odds, and what we're figuring out, what works and what doesn't work. Um, we're slowly getting there. We're slowly getting there. Still a long journey, but we've made a lot of mistakes, a lot of ups and downs, but we're slowly getting there. I'm not gonna lie, we're slowly getting there, and it's to the point where I'm liking the way that we're going. Um, though we're going break even, and though we may lose sometimes, but I feel like we are winning more. And those two, especially those 2 hour trades, I think last week we would have been in the winning area. We would have been up last week. I would need to double check, but we would have been up last week. um, due to those 2 hour trades, as well as making sure that we keep it consistent as well, right? So if we know something works, my psychology is already better affected because we've put in the work to backtest and to collect data on um, what's working and what's not working, right? Why are we losing these trades? And if we are losing, is it due to market conditions, or we um is it due to market conditions, or we made a mistake? Like, where did we go wrong? How can we improve our odds, right? And like, I feel like that we've implemented a lot over the past 2 or 3 months. We've implemented definitions about what we want to see, and if we don't see it, then we don't take it. So that's gonna help with revenge trading. That's gonna help with finding A plus setups, right? That's the goal, right? Before we used to take as many trades as we can, but now it's just refining it so we are taking A plus setups, but as much as we can of those A plus setups, right? And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm realizing myself that within these 1 hour of backtesting, I'm not only getting 20 to 30 trades and 2 3 hour backtest session. I'm only getting 2 trades per 1 hour to 2 hours of backtesting, right? So, I'm slowly eliminating those bad trades as well as finding good ones. And that's why we have our conditions and we have our strict rules that we stick to, right? Um, and that's knowing that it works as well. So that's also going to help our psychology, because if we know that it works, right, we could just have off days as well. But there's always room to learn, and I'm always open to learn, right? My learning doesn't want to stay capped, but also don't want to learn too much, right? To where we overcomplicate things again and kind of fall into that era of overcomplicating things, because I had a struggle with that too. So I'm just gonna get a drink of water. What's it? But yeah, we don't want to fall into the trap of feeling kind of flustered by the market because it's giving us too many confluences, but we haven't backtested it, and we have no knowledge of whether this confluence will work or not within our strategy. And it just made me feel overcomplicated. That's why those trades that I used to take before, every setup would be a different setup. Like, it would be on the same basis of the same kind of outlook for the market for the day, and kind of the same choices um when it comes to POIs. But um we have um we kind of have that kind of mistake that we've kind of fixed, right? Of Oh, yeah, what I meant to say before was, kind of forgot, but I remember now, is that we kind of picked the same trades in terms of like high time frame analysis, but the way that we were taking our entries were not consistent at all. It would be different breaks of structure. It would be different conditions for that day. It would be fucking everything would be different, and that leads to inconsistency because we're not trading the same thing that we know that works. So that's why we continue to backtest to make sure that we're feeling confident with our strategies and things like that. So without wasting any more time, right, of me yapping, I'll get into these trade breakdowns of my thoughts and kind of why we took this trade. So, um, high time frame analysis. Um, so, with the structure, yeah. So we have structure here, right? And we break these significant lows. We would our last break be our last break would be from these highs down to these lows. So as you guys can see, we don't feel equilibrium at all whatsoever. Completely okay. It is what it is. Market doesn't have to come and feel that every single time. Just means that we're not going to be taking a trade. Um, on the so we kind of have no confluences on the 4 hour, but what we did have was the fact that we were within a 4 hour fair value gap. So we break structure to the downside, right? We break significant lows, which shows us that price is now in a bearish state on the 4 hour. We tap into this 4 hour fair value gap. Unfortunately, it wasn't an equilibrium, so we couldn't go straight into the 5 minute on this. We kind of had to wait for some form of displacement on the 1 hour or some kind of breaker structure on the 1 hour. So we had all these significant lows here, but a recent break would have been from these highs down to these lows here, and um, I actually missed this trade. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, because this would have been our breaker structure here, so we could have gotten from. Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I actually missed that trade, unless I wasn't on the market at that point in time. Man, I forgot when I made the session. I mean, I think I would have caught that, but maybe I didn't realize. Maybe I was waiting for a tap. Oh, I know what it was. Yeah, I know what it was. The fact that we had this 1 hour fair value gap here, and I really wanted it to get filled. We did have so on this breaker structure, we had some POIs. It being um it being this order block, our last line of defense. We also had this order block here, but I wasn't really happy taking a trade knowing that we had this fair value gap above. But this would have been a valid trade, um, just because we formed an order block here. But again, it's one of those things where we created a wick to the downside, and this order block wouldn't be. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I mean, I wouldn't just take this trade in general. Um, if we have clear objective of this fair value gap being in a premium to go short, I'll clearly just wait for that. But until then, we just wait for the next significant low to get broken. So right, we make a significant low. We don't get a retracement up into this fair value gap. Fine, okay, whatever. But then, but then we get a breaker structure here. Oh, that's probably why I didn't take the trade, because yeah, I see that we start to make some moves up. But we do get a fill of equilibrium, but not in a POI, so we don't take that trade. Ideally, we want it to be in a POI, but we did get our entry model formed here. But they we get our next break of a significant low on the 1 hour time frame. So I'm just like, okay, cool. What do we have? We have the only thing we kind of had to act on is this order block here, as well as this one here. But we kind of had the reactions from this order block, and it was within equilibrium. So we were within our parameters to take a trade, right? Because the trade has to be within a POI, um, and within equilibrium on a high time frame, either the 4 hour or the 1 hour. So in this case, we were reacting off the 1 hour because the 1 hour is currently bearish. We didn't the 1 hour wasn't bullish at all, so we weren't retracing on the 4 hour time frame. We were actually making new structure on the 4 hour. So 1 hour and 4 hour were bearish. 4 hour wasn't in equilibrium, but the 1 hour was. So we take the trade on the momentum in which price is displacing, because if price is on the 1 hour still bearish, just means that we we might be creating a more of a leg down, right? And then a bigger retracement, right? So that's what the 1 hour bearish kind of tells me. When the 1 hour and the 4 hour bearish, it just means that um, we're probably making more of a leg down, right? To kind of make this range a little bit bigger, and then the 4 hour will retrace, sort of thing. But that's kind of what I'm thinking when in terms of what the 1 hour and 4 hour are doing respectively to each other. But nevertheless, this trade was taken on this 1 hour order block. Recent breaker structure, so we broke the significant low. That would be our breaker structure. What pairwise did we have? We had this 1 hour order block here, which is marked out. We then go into the 5 minute, and we pretty much wait for our entry model here. We do have all these highs up here, so we had no entry model here, here. Yeah, that was the entry model before, but yeah, we then get a retracement up, no entry model when we get a tap into that 1 hour. Nothing here. Nothing here. Nothing here. Price just keeps breaking structure to the upside. We then get a entry model here, right? We get a sweep. We also get a sweep of these highs, right? No breaker structure. We then get a re-sweep of these highs, right? So we've taken out these highs now, but price closed above, but we then re-sweep these highs once again. So now first step is ticked, right? We have our sweep to show that, to clear our early sellers. We have our breaker structure, our market structure shift, which is here. Which is there. Am I confusing myself? Or did I count this as a breaker structure? Because we put in that high, or we put in that high, then we put in that low. Yeah, maybe I counted that as a breaker structure. So we have a internal break as well as a significant break, which is here. So either way, trade is still valid. But once you got an internal break, we formed a fair value gap within that. So I was more than happy to look for a trade because our conditions were still met, following the fact that we respect these highs because it's just been swept. So yeah, we get an internal break as well as a break down here. We get a fill of this fair value gap here. We get a nice bearish candle out of it. I enter on the fact that we had some nice displacement out of this fair value gap being respected, and win break even at all these stacked lows here. Following that, we come out and take these lows as well as all these lows down here, following the trend, of course, following the high time frame trend. But as soon as price came up here, we we had a pretty much instant fill or break even. But I kind of saved this part for you guys so we can kind of see the trade play out and kind of see what happens. Yeah, so would have been a loss. And that's why we go break even, right? Because though price comes up sometimes, right? If we hold the trade out, though price comes up sometimes, it may, end up continuing the trend or the intended direction where we want the price to go. But, there's chances like this where we take lows, right? But internally, the price still wants to go bullish, right? Price isn't ready to reverse yet, right? And price ends up stopping us out, right? And that's why we have our protected layer, which is making sure that we have lows to go break even at, right? Then this is exactly why. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned this like a long time ago that going break even at these highs and lows are important because that gives us targets, and you know, price draws towards liquidity, right? So if price wasn't draw to this liquidity here and it be enough to push higher into this order block, that's completely okay. Just means that price isn't ready to reverse yet. But again, we save ourselves the loss, right? Rather, we'd rather just go break even at that point. But yeah, I mean that kind of wraps up this trade. 1 hour order block within equilibrium. We have our entry model. We have our sweep. We have fair value gap created on the market structure shift. So not only did we get a market structure shift, we had displacement. What is displacement? We want a fair value gap to be created within that leg. So we have multiple forms of defense when we do take a trade. Um, and we had stop loss goals met. Um, so if we take out these lows, right, we should see in continuation to take out more lows, right? But at these first set of lows, we go break even as our target, and yeah, price ends up stopping us out instantly, which is okay, because it just would have resulted in a full loss, which is we will take that. We'll take that any day of the week. But yeah, that kind of wraps up this trade here. I'll go on to the next one. I think this one here. So same thing again. What's the 4 hour doing? Um, 4 hours bearish, right? Following the range from these highs down to these lows. Price unfortunately wasn't in a premium to go short. That's okay. We then go into the 1 hour. What do we see on the 1 hour? We see that within the recent break of a significant low, that would be our breaker structure. Within that break, what do we have? We have price come up and fill equilibrium, which is up here. What's within this equilibrium? This fair value gap up here. We also had these order blocks up here as well within that premium area to go short. But in this case, price reacted off this fair value gap here. Okay, cool. And once we had a tap, unfortunately, we couldn't get our entry model formed at this fair value gap. That's completely okay as well. All we have to do is just wait. And we didn't get an entry model at all. So, and this is why I kept this trade to kind of show you guys that honestly, after breaking these lows, I would have just called it a day because those would have been my targets for the day. Would have been these lows here, and this kind of all this range to play around with to target these lows. I would have definitely just called it a day. Um, because of price and price targets our main low for the day, it just means that price will either reverse or continuation, right? But yeah, I just want to remind you guys that when it comes to like days like this where we get a fill, right, but we don't have our entry model, that those are the days where you also don't trade. But um we still like this was a weeks of price action, so I still kind of wanted to get a trade in for you guys just to kind of let you guys know what I'm kind of looking for in terms of taking a trade. But again, it's kind of just waiting for the same thing. But again, just want to remind you guys that this day, after taking out our draws for the day, probably would have just gotten off because there's no point trying to wait for a retracement once again, um, on the high time frame, right? So a recent break would have been here, and then following that we get a retracement back up. So it's like I'd rather just get off and wait for the new day, to be honest. But yeah, Once we get a fill of that high time frame, we have no kind of we have no entry models. We do, however, kind of get a sweep of these highs here, but wouldn't consider this a high. Um, yeah, high, 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 low. So that would be a high. I mean, you can kind of consider this a recent break would probably be here. We have, oh, we do have a fair value gap, but it's within this range here. But in terms of our most recent break, we wouldn't have any fair value gaps on the way down, so we couldn't consider this a trade. Just seeing, I'm just going over if we've missed any trades, right? Nothing here. Yeah, so within this breaker structure, within this leg down, we have no fair value gaps. That's all right. Nothing here. No clean sweeps here. Price fucking, I don't know what the fuck happened here, but price did whatever it wanted to do there. No sweep, no clean sweep, no clean sweep, no clean sweep. We do, however, get a clean sweep here. So we have these highs here. We get taken out. We make a clean market structure shift to the downside. And now we have this whole range to play with from these highs down to these lows, right? We have our sweep. We have clear displacement, which is our fair value gap, following a breaker structure, which is here. So this is a clean trade. Equilibrium was equilibrium at this fair value gap here. We get a fill of the fair value gap. We get clear displacement out of it. Nice bullish candle overlapping this one. I enter, stops above these highs. We had these lows to go break even at. Went break even, and yeah, pretty much instantly got stopped out break even straight away. So unfortunately, couldn't deliver down to these lows here. But what price ended up doing was coming back a little bit, taking out these highs here. We then get a resweep of these highs here into this fair value gap, and then we get that nice move out of it. So yeah, unfortunate timing with the market. Wasn't able to time at that time, but at least we know that the strategy works, and we have those protective measures in place because of stuff like this. This same model, but two instances can happen, right? Price could either reverse and stop us out, or can play out, which is with every trade, right? It could do either thing. So yeah, I mean, we're getting there, lads. We're getting there, and we're slowly getting there. Um, and yeah, I mean, that kind of wraps it up for this video here. I just want to say all glory to God. Wouldn't he's helped me on this journey. Kept me sane, kept me going. So I just want to give thanks to him. Just want to give thanks to you guys as well for watching. Um, and I'll see you guys in the video tomorrow. Peace.